Welcome back to the Deep Dive, everybody. Today we're going to be looking at something pretty important for your portfolio. We're talking about the biotech industry.
That's right.
And we're looking at a recent article from the Motley Fool that was published just yesterday.
March 19th.
March 19th, 2025. That pinpoints, I think, some really interesting growth opportunities in biotech right now.
Yeah.
So what we want to do in this deep dive is really kind of unpack why this particular article is highlighting two specific biotech stocks.
Right.
Moderna and CRISPR Therapeutics as, quote, no-brainer buys.
Yeah, the no-brainer always gets me.
I know, right?
How can it be a no-brainer? But, we'll look at the argument.
That's what we're here for. We're going to unpack that, what makes them think this is such a sure thing. So, the biotech sector is interesting because it's really the cutting edge of, innovation in medicine and new therapies. And so it's not just about new medicines. It's really about kind of the fundamental science that could lead to really big, portfolio growth down the line, and also the long-term earning stability that everybody's always looking for. So let's start with Moderna.
Okay.
A name that, probably everybody knows, mainly from their work on the coronavirus vaccine.
Yeah, the COVID vaccine.
The article reminds us that the stock was really everybody loved it during the kind of early stages of the pandemic.
The darling.
Yeah, the darling. But then, it also mentions that there's been a really big downturn in the stock price, almost an 80% drop in the last 3 years.
Yeah, that's significant.
Yeah, which, understandably would make some people pause and say, well, wait a minute. But the article makes the case that this drop, this big drop in coronavirus vaccine revenue, which is, of course, down from its peak, doesn't necessarily mean you should just write Moderna off.
Right.
So, what's the argument there?
Well, what they're saying is that it's not just about this one vaccine, right? What's interesting about Moderna is their approach, this mRNA technology.
Right.
So the article really emphasizes that they've got this deep and promising pipeline of what they call late-stage product candidates. So things that are pretty far along, in development that use this mRNA technology to target a whole range of diseases. It's pretty surprising, the breadth of what they're working on. And I think for people who don't know, mRNA, those are messenger molecules that tell your cells.
Yeah, deliver instructions.
Yeah, to produce specific proteins. Yeah. And these proteins then can help fight off disease.
Okay.
So it's really quite interesting how they're applying it.
So it sounds like, obviously they're known for the COVID vaccine, but it sounds like they've really broadened their focus into other areas. What are some of the things that they're targeting with this pipeline? So
for example, they're working on a cancer vaccine, which is,
That's huge.
Yeah, that's the holy grail. The holy grail.
Of medical research. So, imagine, a vaccine that could effectively prevent or treat certain cancers. And then beyond that, they're also working on vaccines that target a bunch of, infectious and latent viruses. So shingles, for example.
Right.
Lots of people get that. It's a really unpleasant,
that's awful.
Condition.
And really common.
Yeah, very common. And also, CMV.
What is that?
Cytomegalovirus, which, a lot of people have. And it can be really problematic for newborns or people with weak immune systems.
Right.
Cause real problems.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, yeah, it's a pretty interesting pipeline.
It sounds like they're going after, areas where there's a real need, that hasn't been met yet.
Yeah, lots of potential.
Yeah, lots of potential. And, it's not just early stage research. The article also points to, that they've already submitted 3 product candidates for regulatory approval.
Which is a big step.
A huge step.
Because that means they're going to the FDA and saying hey, we think this is ready.
Yeah.
And, notably, one of these is a combined coronavirus and flu vaccine, which would, streamline protection against these, 2 major respiratory illnesses.
Right.
Right?
You just get one shot and you're good.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a real sign that they're moving, out of the lab and, really into, potential widespread use.
Right.
And their ambitions are pretty big, right? They're talking about potentially securing up to 10 product approvals in the coming years. So, that would be a really big change in how we view this company.
Oh, yeah. If Moderna could, achieve even a decent percentage of those approvals, it would be a huge new chapter for them in terms of revenue.
Right.
And I think it would also validate that mRNA platform, show that it's really versatile, not just a one-trick pony with the coronavirus vaccine.
Right, right, exactly. But, developing new drugs is a very costly thing.
Oh, yeah.
The article does mention, though, that they have some financial strength here. So how are they positioned to, fund all of this?
Well, one of the things the article highlights is that they've got over $9 billion in cash on hand.
Wow.
Which is a lot of money. So that gives them a lot of runway to really invest, in these clinical trials that, as you know, are really expensive and take a long time.
Yeah.
So it gives them that cushion
right.
to really see things through.
So, we might not see immediate returns from these potential approvals, but they have the money to kind of stick it out.
Right.
It seems like this lower stock price now might be a chance for people who are thinking long term to kind of, get in before the story potentially changes.
Yeah, that's kind of how the article frames it. Like if you're thinking long term, 3, 5, maybe even 10 years out, this could be a good time to, to get in on the ground floor, so to speak.
Right. But of course, with biotech, patience is key, right?
Oh, always. It's a long game.
It's a long game. So, okay, that's a good look at Moderna and kind of what this article is saying.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears now and talk about the second no-brainer stock that they mentioned, CRISPR Therapeutics.
All right.
And this is a company that's really been at the forefront of this revolutionary gene editing technology.
Gene editing, yeah, it's really cutting-edge stuff.
So CRISPR Therapeutics, they saw a big surge in their stock price when they get this regulatory approval for a treatment called Casgevy, which is for certain inherited blood disorders.
Right.
And what's really groundbreaking about this is that Casgevy is the first approved product that uses this CRISPR gene editing technology.
Yeah, so this is a big deal for them and for the whole field, really.
So for those of us who, maybe aren't super deep into genetics, can you explain what this CRISPR gene editing is all about?
Sure. So think of CRISPR gene editing as super precise molecular scissors that can go in and target very specific faulty genes.
Okay.
In your DNA, the ones that are causing the problem.
Causing the disease.
Yeah. So they can go in and kind of fix them. And, it's a really different approach because it's targeting that root cause of the genetic condition.
So, this approval of Casgevy wasn't just a big win for CRISPR Therapeutics. It's a big moment, for this whole field of gene editing. It shows that it's actually...
it's real. It's not just in the lab anymore.
It's real. It's applicable in the real world.
Yeah.
And the article points this out as a major validation of the science.
Right, yeah. It's okay, this stuff actually works.
Yeah, it's not just, pie in the sky.
Right.
It's real. And, it also means for CRISPR, this is their first product that's bringing in revenue.
Right. Yeah, so this is a big transition for them. They're no longer just a research and development company. They're actually, selling something and making money from it.
So that's a big step for a biotech company. But here's the thing that's interesting.
What's that?
The article mentions that despite this huge regulatory win, CRISPR Therapeutics stock actually dropped almost 40% in 2024.
Wow.
So why is that?
So, yeah, it does seem counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
Big win, stock goes down. But, the article kind of digs into this and suggests that the treatment process for Casgevy is pretty long.
Okay.
So it can take months.
Okay.
And because of that, they don't see that revenue right away. So maybe investors were expecting, this huge immediate windfall.
Catching.
Yeah, catching. And it just hasn't quite happened that way.
Right. So again, it seems like it's a long-term game.
Mm-hmm.
The potential's there, but it might just take a while for that to actually be reflected in the bottom line.
Right.
And, similar to Moderna, they also seem to have a pretty good financial cushion.
Yeah, so the article points out that they have about $1.9 billion in cash reserves.
Okay.
Which, is still a lot of money.
Yeah.
And this is really important because they're still in the early stages of rolling out Casgevy, right? Getting it to patients, figuring out the logistics of that.
Yeah, working out the kinks.
Yeah, and also they have a lot of other research programs.
Right.
That they're working on. So they need that cash to keep things going.
So it sounds like, they're starting to overcome those initial hurdles in getting Casgevy out there. The article mentions that their latest earnings report was pretty positive.
Yeah, so they're saying that the Casgevy rollout is gaining momentum, which I think is, encouraging for investors.
Yeah.
It suggests that, they're figuring out the logistics and the implementation challenges of, actually getting this therapy to patients.
Right.
And so, hopefully we'll start to see that reflected in their revenue, in the coming quarters.
Right, right. And looking beyond Casgevy, what other things are investors, keeping an eye on with CRISPR Therapeutics?
So one of the things the article mentions is CTX112. This is one of their, experimental treatments that's in clinical trials right now.
Okay.
And it's being studied for, certain types of cancer, oncology,
Right.
and also for autoimmune conditions. So, if they get some positive results
Yeah.
from those trials, that could be a big boost for the stock.
Yeah, yeah.
Potentially later this year.
So they're not just betting everything on Casgevy. They've got other things in the pipeline
Right.
that are promising. So again, it seems like the article is saying, even though the stock price is down right now, if you're willing to take that long-term view, CRISPR Therapeutics could be a really good buy.
Yeah. I mean, they've got this first-in-class approved therapy with Casgevy. They've got a promising pipeline. They've got cash. So, it's definitely a compelling case.
All right. So we've taken a look at Moderna. We've taken a look at CRISPR Therapeutics.
Two very interesting companies.
Two very interesting companies, very different approaches to, kind of tackling these big problems in medicine.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I think the article makes some good points about like the bigger picture of investing in biotech in general. What are some of the key takeaways there?
So I think, the biggest thing is that long-term perspective is key.
Yeah.
You're not going to get rich quick with biotech. Usually you have to be willing to wait it out.
Yeah.
And also, they acknowledge that there are risks, right? It's not a guarantee that every drug or every treatment that's being developed is going to be successful.
Yeah, and it's not a smooth path either, right? I mean, there
are setbacks.
There's setbacks. There's failures.
Yeah.
So, the article makes the point that it's wise to look for companies that have like a good, solid pipeline,
Right, diversified,
not just, betting everything on one product.
Right.
And then also, importantly, that have the financial resources to like weather those inevitable setbacks.
Right.
So to kind of sum everything up from this deep dive into this Motley Fool article, both Moderna and CRISPR Therapeutics, they have some really compelling arguments for why they're good investments right now.
Yeah.
Moderna, of course, using its mRNA technology that's already been proven with the COVID vaccine and applying that to a whole bunch of other things with this pipeline and a lot of cash. And then CRISPR Therapeutics, capitalizing on that really groundbreaking approval of Casgevy.
Right.
And with other potential things, coming down the pike soon.
Yeah, so exciting times.
Yeah, exciting times. But, again, with biotech, it's all about that long-term outlook, right?
Absolutely. You got to be patient.
You got to be patient. And I think what's really, kind of what I'm thinking about now is it's so cool to see these two companies side by side because you got Moderna, like really leading the way with mRNA.
Yeah.
And then you've got CRISPR Therapeutics, which is, at the forefront of gene editing.
Yeah.
These are like really transformative technologies that could like really change the face of medicine.
Oh, yeah. I think we're just like at the very beginning of what's possible with these technologies. It's going to be really interesting to see, how it all unfolds.
Totally. So kind of as a final thought, when you're thinking about investing in biotech, it's a long, complex process to develop these new drugs and get them approved.
Absolutely.
So beyond just looking at, the current revenue and the stock price, what are some other things that people should be looking at to figure out if this is really like a good long-term investment?
Yeah.
That's something I think we can all kind of ponder as we, think about all the information that we've talked about today.
Yeah, it's a great question.
All right. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, this was great.
And we'll see you next time.